What if a single dime from 1996 still carries the quiet weight of an entire nation's story, and most people have walked past it 1,000 times without ever noticing? Look closer. Right now, somewhere in a pocket, a drawer, or a forgotten change jar, a 1996 Roosevelt dime sits. Small, ordinary, almost invisible. Yet that thin silver-colored disc holds the face of a president who led through the darkest years of the 20th century, the quiet symbols of peace and strength, and a mint mark that tells exactly where it was born. This is not a story about overnight riches. It is a story about presence, about the strange way a coin can outlive the moment it was made and still ask us questions decades later. In 1946, just months after the end of World War II, the United States introduced the Roosevelt dime. Franklin Delano Roosevelt had died the year before. The nation was still grieving a leader who had guided it through depression and global war. Designer John R. Sinek created a portrait that still feels intimate. Roosevelt facing left, steady, thoughtful, almost as if he is still listening. The word liberty curves above him. In God we trust rests quietly below his chin. The date sits near the rim, and on this particular coin, the small letter D appears just above the year, proof it was struck at the Denver Mint. Turn it over. A torch burns at the center. An olive branch reaches from one side. An oak branch answers from the other. A pluribus unum stretches across the middle. The torch stands for liberty. The olive branch for peace. The oak for strength and independence. These were not random decorations. They were the language of a country that had just survived catastrophe and wanted to remember what it had fought for. By 1996, that design had already been circulating for 50 years. Billions of these dimes had already passed through millions of hands. That year alone, the Denver Mint produced more than 1.4 billion of them. Philadelphia made even more. They were meant to be spent again, and eventually worn smooth. Most of them were. And yet, something still feels different when you hold one that has survived in better condition. Most people never look past the date. They never notice the tiny details that separate an ordinary dime from one that collectors lean in to examine. Look at the bands across the torch. On many coins, those horizontal lines are weak or incomplete. On the rarest survivors, the bands are fully split. Sharp, complete, almost architectural. Collectors call them full bands. That small difference in strike quality can turn a common coin into something that changes hands for hundreds of dollars when the grade is high enough. The mint mark itself is another quiet story. The D tells you this particular piece began its life in Colorado under the high desert sun in a facility that has been striking coins for more than a century. In 1996, the Mint also produced a special West Point version with a W mint mark to mark the design's 50th anniversary. Those were never meant for circulation. They lived only in mint sets. Your 1996 D, by contrast, was born to travel. It was supposed to buy a newspaper, a cup of coffee, a phone call from a payphone that no longer exists. That is part of the emotional weight. This coin has almost certainly been in more places than most of us ever will. It has rested in the palm of someone who was nervous about a job interview. It has been counted out carefully by a parent buying groceries. It has sat in a child's hand after a birthday. It has been lost, found, spent, and spent again. Every scratch, every soft edge is a record of that invisible life. Condition is everything to collectors. A heavily worn 1996 D is still just 10 cents. An uncirculated example with original luster might bring a few dollars. But when a coin reaches the highest grades, MS67, MS68, and carries those full sharp bands on the torch, the numbers climb. Auction records show strong examples changing hands for several $100s. Not millions, not life-changing fortunes, but meaningful money for a piece of everyday metal that most people never bother to examine. Why do collectors care? Because coin collecting is rarely only about money. It is about the feeling that an object has outlasted its intended purpose and somehow still carries memory. Holding a 1996 D is like holding a small piece of the mid-1990s that somehow refused to disappear. The economy was shifting. The internet was just beginning to change everything. Music, movies, the quiet texture of daily life, all of it was different. This coin moved through that world. Now it sits in your hand, still recognizable, still speaking the same visual language it did the day it left the Denver Mint. There is a strange intimacy in that. You can almost imagine the dies striking the planche, the metallic ring, the conveyor belts, the bags of new coins heading out into the country. You can picture the first person who received one in change and never looked twice. And then you look again yourself. Hidden details reward the patient eye. The designer's initials JS appear just below Roosevelt's neck. The reading along the edge is still sharp on better examples. The surfaces can show cartwheel luster that catches light like soft liquid metal. Most people never notice any of it. They see a dime. Collectors see a small historical document that still has a pulse. Of course, the realistic value discussion matters. The vast majority of 1996 D dimes will never be worth more than face value. That is the honest truth. Billions were made. Most survive in circulated condition. Only the best preserved pieces with superior strikes attract serious attention. Grading services exist because condition is objective, and the market rewards precision. A coin that looks average in a plastic flip can look completely different under magnification and proper lighting. Yet the emotional attachment often outweighs the pure numbers. Some collectors keep every Roosevelt dime they find from certain years simply because those dates feel personal. Others hunt for full bands examples the way some people hunt for perfect shells on a beach. The search itself becomes the pleasure. The possibility that the next ordinary-looking coin might be the one with sharp bands and clean surfaces keeps the curiosity alive. What does this coin make you feel when you hold it? Does it feel like leftover change? Or does it feel like a small survivor from a year that already belongs to history? That question is the real heart of the story. The 1996 D Roosevelt dime will never be the rarest coin in American numismatics. It will never rewrite anyone's bank account overnight, but it can still stop you for a moment. It can still make you wonder about the hands it has already passed through and the quiet life it has already lived. In a world that moves faster every year, there is something almost defiant about a small piece of metal that refuses to be completely ordinary. So the next time you receive a 1996 dime in change, pause. Turn it over. Look at the torch. Look at the bands. Look at the face of a president who once carried the weight of a nation. Ask yourself the same question this coin has been asking for nearly 30 years. What stories has this one already seen? And what story will it carry next? If this made you pull out your own change jar or look twice at a dime you almost spent, tell me in the comments what year you found. And if you want more stories about the coins that hide in plain sight, stay with me. There are still so many waiting to be noticed.